There's a reason why it's broken. Almost everything in this country is because of campaign contributions. And when corporations give money, the politicians do as they're told. And in this case, they're told, don't fix it. So I understand that. But at the same time, what I've seen, and as a progressive, I care a lot about higher wages for Americans, is that none of the fear-mongering came to pass. We did not have huge unemployment. We didn't lose our jobs. The wages were not related to that at all. And you've seen the meta studies, and they show that they're not related. So the things that wages are related to are, for example, is there a higher minimum wage? Does that push up other wages? Corporate power. You see, from 1938 to 1978, productivity in America was sky high, and our wages matched it. It was terrific. Then the Supreme Court legalized bribery and allowed corporate contributions. From then on, your productivity still soars, but your wages flatline. It's because of corporate power. It has nothing to do with the immigrants. And in fact, waves and waves of immigrants have absolutely proven that to be the case.
But Cenk,
talk about, I'm shocked.
You know, productivity has been jumping for a long time, and AI is going to make it jump exponentially. We're about to have a leap in technology, the likes of which we haven't seen since the internet was invented because of AI. People underestimate how incredibly powerful that that technology is and how groundbreaking and useful it is. It is going to change everything. In fact, it already is changing everything as we speak. So anyway, our productivity is going to go up even more because of that. And who's going to see the benefits? You? The worker? The guy sitting there programming, for example? No. It's going to be the company owners that benefit. This is why we need to redistribute wealth to be more equal. A little bit, at least. A little more equal. Anything. Because if we don't redistribute right now from where we are, right now in America, it's going to turn into 1700s France. We're already almost there with the wealth disparity. And I don't know, I think that this might have come from the period. Rousseau famously said, when the poor run out of things to eat, they will eat the rich. When they have nothing left because the rich own it all, that's the poor class's next stop, their house. The only way that that is prevented is through violent dictatorship. But that only works for so long, especially on a culture that is not ready for a dictatorship, who's unwilling to accept a dictatorship, and who grew up being told that kings and dictators are sacks of shit, and that's why we live in America, so we don't have those. So we'll see how this turns out. I posted a meme on Blue Sky, said something like, showed a picture of Elon Musk, and it said, when you spend $250,000 trying to recreate 1930s Germany, but you get 1780s France. That's pretty much where this is headed, in my opinion, anyway. Not that I want that, I don't. I'm just saying that's where we're headed.
That this far into the conversation, national security came up in no one statement. And one of the things one of the things that's known is that people are coming through the Darien Gap from all over the world. They're coming from China.
Oh my God, this is the classic. Immigrants are being sent here to act as an army opposed to the United States, an invading army. Complete nonsense. This is, for what it's worth, exactly what Hitler said too. By the way, the algorithm is hitting me hard right now, completely ignoring me. So I'd appreciate if you watched to the end of the video. Having increased watch time as a percentage and a raw number is what pushes the video further. Also check out my books, owenmorgan.com. All right, back to the video. This is not a unique thought.
China, they're coming from Russia, they're coming from Syria, they're coming from Egypt, they're coming from Mauritania, they're coming from everywhere.
Just bullshit.
And we don't know who those people are. How much of a concern is that for those of you on the stage? Maybe, Cenk, let's start with you.
Zero, none.
Why?
Okay, so let's talk about reality.
America.
Yeah,
right?
Let's talk about reality.
Because that, to me, seems like the thing that has radicalized a lot of people on this issue.
Yeah, they're empirically incorrect. So first of all, Fox News will demagogue and go, oh my God, there was a prayer rug. There's a Muslim guy coming. First of all, what does that even mean? So there's a Muslim guy coming in. Why don't you just tell me you're a bigot? Like, I'm not saying you guys, I'm saying Fox News. That doesn't prove a goddamn thing. What does it prove?
Yeah, why does anyone give a shit if there's a Muslim? Like, really?
Oh, there's a prayer rug. And it
My landlord's a Muslim. Like, I care. I don't give a shit. Kind of sucks that he came over to replace my dryer, and he shook my hand and bowed to my wife. Wouldn't shake her hand, though she extended it. That, you know, that kind of shit's kind of stupid. But I couldn't possibly care less otherwise.
It turns out, of course, it's not. So, you know how many terrorists have come in through the border and then done a
Zero.
massive plot against us? To my knowledge, zero. Zero. Okay, do you know how many people have done mass shootings in America? Tons and tons and tons.
And they're always white dudes for some reason. The 9/11 hijackers came in legally, lived here for like months or even years, trained here, and then pulled the trigger.
Are we kidding ourselves? The mass shootings that happen every single day, the massacre after massacre, and yes, that's all of us, the people that live in America. There's not this demagoguing about national security is nonsense. If you're talking about national security and giving away our secrets, the real threats come. They are super rich. They come on planes. There are spies. Look, it's bipartisan. The Chinese spy who slept with Eric Swalwell. This Chinese spy. It's true.
No, that's real. That's 100% real. Hold on. Eric Swalwell is a, just want to verify this. Yeah, he's a Democrat. And he starts dating this girl. And they were together for like ever. And they were like sleeping together and stuff, obviously. Turns out she was a Chinese spy, full-on Chinese spy. How long did Eric Swalwell date the spy? It was in 2020, I think. He was cleared of all wrongdoing. Her name was Christine Fang, but her Chinese spy name was Fang Fang, I think. Yeah, this happened in 2020. I'm not sure how long they were together, but anyway, yeah, that's 100% real.
Oh, the
That,
Chinese.
by the way, is work that an American won't do.
Zing.
And by the way, the Chinese spy that was caught at Mar-a-Lago. All you got to do is walk into Mar-a-Lago.
Okay, now Cenk says he has zero concern for national security. And Sorab, want to jump?
What a scumbag way to frame that, really.
I have a few terrorist attacks that were done by immigrants. 9/11.
No, that's not what he said. How many came over the border? She's so full of shit.
The Orlando shooting. San Ber- I don't.
Go ahead, Ann.
Again, who was talking there?
What a complete sack of shit. Seriously.
I don't care if they came across the border. San Bernardino. Oh, and
That's what we're fucking talking about.
by the way, it's hard to figure these things out because one of the San Bernardino terrorists, as well as the Orlando Pulse nightclub terrorist, was born in America. So the media.
So you're saying that they were not immigrants? They were U.S. citizens? Is that what you're telling me?
You 100% describe them as American man. Yes, it's
Well, isn't that what they were?
the apple-cheeked boy next door. How did this happen? Homegrown. The Boston bombers. And how did they get in? Family reunification. They had some uncle someplace who had come in.
She is one of the most vile human beings I have ever heard debate outside of Nick Fuentes. I feel like Nick Fuentes is a Nazi and he knows that he's a Nazi and he revels in being such. I feel like Ann Coulter thinks she's standing on principle and being a no-nonsense voter and honestly trying to whatever. It's wild to see somebody go full-on Nazi and not connect with that, not realize.
Basically, every terrorist attack you can think of. Oh, the Times Square bomber, the first.
Basically, every terrorist attack you can think of. Well, I mean, I can think of, what was it? The Oklahoma City bombing and Timothy McVeigh and Ted Kaczynski. What the hell? The Unabomber, that was the name. I can think of a lot of stuff that was homegrown terrorists, Americans that have lived here for generations.
World Trade Center bombing. All of them, they were illegal immigrants under the Agricultural Adjustment Act in the 1965.
And she creates an exception for if they were U.S. citizens If they aren't white, then they're immigrants. Wow.
Immigration law that allowed agricultural workers to stay, and they would just lie. The INS knew that 90% of them were fake and just let them in anyway. So there's
Just complete lies. The whole thing is just fictitious trash. Nazi trash. This is like a while ago, too. I'm surprised.
those are a few committed by immigrants.
So early,
But I've got to say, literally none of those people crossed the border. Literally none.
You're talking, but no, but if what we're
That's what we're talking about.
you were talking
It's
about
worse
national.
that they come in legally.
You were talking about national.
They were vetted. The Boston Marathon bombers, San Bernardino,
So
Orlando,
then-
they were
yeah,
all vetted.
that's
Our
not the
immigration
question
system
in
said,
front of us.
welcome.
Okay.
No, now
Not how this works, but okay.
wait, now hold on. Now you're talking about documented immigrants, right? So I came in the same way. My uncle's a
I'm talking
doctor,
about
came in, and then and what did I do? It goes right to your opening statement, Barry, which is okay. Then my dad came in and he started a company, hired
Wait, is this Barry Weiss?
hundreds of Americans, helped the American economy, wonderfully productive. Then I started a company. I hired hundreds of Americans. So you mentioned two, Sacramento, I believe, and the Boston bombers.
San Bernardino. I remember that. Wait, is Barry Weiss a dude? This whole time I've been working under the assumption Barry Weiss was a chick. Barry Weiss is a dude. Oh my God. Disregard.
And they didn't come across the border. And how about the hundreds of other terrorist attacks? How about the synagogue shootings? How about Pittsburgh? How about
There you go. She's totally conveniently forgetting. Dylan Roof is another one. Who the hell was the Charlottesville people that ran their car into Heather Heyer? Is that it? I wasn't paying close attention to politics at the time.
the shooting down in El Paso? How about literally thousands of shootings, and you have two documented immigrants and none that cross the border illegally?
Saurabh, go ahead, jump in. Well, the story in the Free Press a few weeks ago by Olivia
Dude, why is this jumping around? I don't know why there are jump cuts here. That's weird.
Reingold that talked about 7 lawsuits being brought in the city of Chicago, almost all by people of color, including from a DEI consultant on the South Side named, I think, Darnell Jones, who
Wow. They were talking about DEI. It can't be that long ago. It's only 7 months ago? Wow, okay.
said they're giving things away to migrants that we've been deprived of in a poor black community. So
This is just nonsense. The whole thing is complete trash.
speak to the politics of this a little bit.
Yeah. So, first of all, I agree with her, and I'll come back to that. You're not going to get me to defend Joe Biden too much. I ran against him. So I'll come back to that too. But I've got to address two things. First of all, when I said national security threat is zero, there was gasps in the room. And let's just note for the record that the debate concluded with, well, what if there's one later? So that just literally happened. That was Sorab's point. Okay. Now, on this idea of, but the bad countries are sending people in. What do you, like when the Irish and the Italian and the Jews were coming in, do you think that they were come from great, amazing countries? At the time, the Irish were starving. They had the Great Potato Famine.
Give us your tired, your hungry, your poor, your huddled masses. That's the principle on which this country was built, and it is the thing that has made this country strong. The idea that people can come from nothing and build themselves into an empire. You know, upward mobility, even though the United States is worse on upward mobility than like many other, I think it ranks like 49th or something. That's like a core value in this country. I don't understand how people like this can be opposed to, people coming in, building themselves up, making something of themselves, coming from nothing and becoming something. How can you be opposed to that? Really?
And they were so poor. The Italians were poor, and the Jews were poor. They lived in the worst parts of New York, etc. And we want to close it off. If we had done that completely and closed it off to those immigrants, it wouldn't be the America that we know and love today. And by the way, it might not even be America. The Jewish physicist driven out of Germany came to America.
Einstein, yeah, he was a German Jew.
And we won World War II because of them. If we had done Coulter strategy at that time, we might not even exist.
They probably are thinking that he's talking about Project Paperclip, where the U.S. government snatched up all of the Nazi scientists. No, he's talking about Einstein and Feinstein, I think, too, and a bunch of others.
We
That's a
were
terrible
doing Ann
idea.
Coulter's strategy. It was pre-1970.
And Cenk, you're a
Oh, that's such a
Cenk,
convenient thing to say.
Cenk, you're a progressive. Between 1923 and 1965, you had the period of restriction of immigration, and that was the period when you had the highest union density in this country. That's
That's correlation. They're not caused by each other. One is not caused by the other. Like, what are you even talking about?
the 30 glorious years. That's the New Deal order. And it coincided with in fact, not relatively, pretty strictly controlled immigration.
Totally conflating two different issues. So
Yeah, how are these connected? What are you even talking about?
corporate power becomes supersized in 1978 after the Supreme Court decisions of Bellotti and Buckley v. Vallejo. So we had a golden period of 38 to 78. We had plenty of immigrants at that point in different parts of that period. The immigrant does not jive with the story you're telling. It's actually all about corporate power, and why we were doing so well is because we had power in a democracy, the American people. If you cut off all of these countries based on, this arbitrary 1970 rule, right? Oh, well, yeah, it's inconvenient because everybody that came pre-1970 is about 98% of the country, right? But these guys, the Latinos, they're not good, and the new immigrants are not good because they're coming from really poor countries.
Yeah, they're coming up with reasons to hate certain people groups.
And they're not helping.
Okay,
But the Irish and the Italians and the Czechs and
that's
everyone
great. Like
else,
sort of,
those are
that's great.
really
Sort of
poor
informal.
countries.
That's great. Sort of
Sora,
informal reasoning.
30 seconds then. Yes, please.
You can write off Chicago and New York as just being, it's just big government. And you can try to say, put a wall around welfare. Yeah, right after you repeal the law of gravity. That's not
What? I don't understand. What are you talking about?
happening. But I could give at least two very, very big counterexamples. Minnesota, the cleanest state in the union. Scandinavians, utterly honest. They dump 100,000 Somalis on them. Immediately the welfare rolls double. Suddenly they're having all kinds of child rape, human smuggling.
This is just trash. There's a small subset of every population that takes advantage of children, that traffics people, criminals. There's a small subset of every population that's made up of criminals. And those people need to be dealt with. Just like in the US population. Deal with them. Catholics do not inherently have a higher predisposition to take advantage of children. It's not a genetic or like a religious whatever. It's not that there are more necessarily in more cases. The problem is that they're not dealing with the problems when they arise. They're hiding priests from prosecution, moving them from parish to parish. They're lying, they're covering it up. That's the problem. Or like, people know that the Catholic Church is going to do that. They know they're going to protect their priests like that. So people, the ones in society who are most likely to do that, will seek out that position. It is not inherent in this group of people that they are going to do this. And if you believe it is, then you're a Nazi, because that's the Nazi argument, that there are groups of people that are genetically predisposed to whatever. Eugenics was the idea that you could selectively breed people or cut off lines by killing them to improve society. But that's not how human beings work. That's not how humans have ever worked. And Hitler and the Nazis used the example of dogs to fortify their position that you can, in fact, selectively breed traits into people. The reason it works with dogs and not people is because people are uniquely polygenic in ways that don't allow for that type of thing, that don't allow for personality traits to be passed down genetically the way that dogs do. It's not genetically possible. So if you believe that Somalis are just more violent, if they just have a larger subset of people that take advantage of children in their society or whatever, then you're just a Nazi. And not only that, you're a science-denying Nazi. The point is that Ann Coulter is, I don't even think, aware of this, but she very clearly holds Nazi beliefs. This is what made Nazis Nazis. This is what set them apart from everybody else. This is the defining feature in their movement. They believe that the government should pick and choose who is allowed to live in this society, and they should choose the genetically superior people. If you notice, she said earlier, I don't know if we were watching at the time, maybe it was in the previous episode, she wants more people from Europe, fewer people from Mexico, for example, or Venezuela or whatever. Why? I mean, she didn't say, I want fewer poor people and more rich people. She said, I want more white and fewer brown. It's because she thinks that there is a racial inferiority. Anyway, yeah, tell me what you think about it. She's just a colossal scumbag.